Hello, my name is Keyack from Keyack Technology Solutions. In this video, we're going to talk to metal building companies that are using MBS SlideRule and Tekla structures for steel detailing. One of the first things that come up is how do I get an Excel shipper that I am used to getting out of MBS, but get that out of Tekla? Now, we often write customized exports to match the customization that you've done in MBS to get that out of Tekla structures, and it requires some adjustment and setup. But if you need something right away to get something out of Tekla for something that you've detailed and get it into the default MBS Excel shipper format, then that's what we're going to show you how to do in this video. So what does the default MBS Excel shipper look like? It has some basic tab pages for columns and rafters, your opening framing, which would be like your jambs and your headers and sills, then your cold form, loose clips, angles, bracing, and then sheeting and trim if I had that actually imported into the model here, and then your fasteners and your bolts, including your screws, and if you had the sheeting and trim and you added those screws into Tekla. So again, the whole idea here is that I want to be able to get something very similar to this as a starting point, so that way I can copy paste that over into my MBS shipper. Even if you've customized your MBS shipper to be a little bit different than this default out of the box, that's fine. At least we're getting something into Excel so that way you can copy paste the data rather than manually have to try to copy that data into your existing shipper. So when you're done detailing a job in Tekla and you've created all the shop drawings and your numbering and piece marking is complete, what you can do is you can go up to the Drawings and Reports menu, and then you can press on the Reports button. That'll open up the Reports dialog box. Then you can select from one of the Xshipper reports that we have available here. The Xshipper.out uses the default orientation for your cold form and your punch codes. We'll just go ahead and use this as an example. And I'm going to go ahead and press Create From All at the lower left-hand corner. That will then read through the entire model, and it will create a CSV file that's going to mimic the MBS Xshipper.out that you're used to doing directly in the MBS job folder. So here you can see it's just a comma delimited file, and you'll see that each of those Excel tab pages are defined here. Okay, so if you're like me, you have your MBS installation in your C drive MBS folder, which is what I'm going to see here on the left. Then on the right, these are all of the KTS setup files that you downloaded when you received and bought our package of content. There is a Tekla Excel shipper files folder. If you go inside of here, there's an MBS subfolder in there. If we go inside of that, that has a series of customized files that will then be copied into your MBS installation. Now, I have intentionally prefixed them with a Tekla prefix, so that way they do not interfere with any of your default files in any way. So you can still run your normal Excel shipper utility that you have customized and tweaked, but here we're going to make a replica or a copy of the default shipper, which is what I'm using and showing here. And that way you can at least get some form of shipper utility run from Tekla, even though you're going to keep your existing customized shipper functionality. So here, these are some custom report files. And so for instance, here, if I go into the FRM file and open this up in Notepad, you can see that this is that same exact format as that template report that I just ran. And it just has this formatting structure to tell the Excel shipper utility how to actually take the Xship.out and put that into the appropriate Excel spreadsheet tab pages. And then up here in the SIS2 folder, I've just renamed this file here to Tekla.sys. So if I open this up, you'll see that it's empty. And this is usually the file that you're customizing to kind of route things to different tab pages, and you can filter by the profile or the description. And you're kind of basically customizing the output. Now, here, the other thing is in the util folder. This is actually my copy of the default Excel shipper default spreadsheet that has all of the correct columns and stuff like that in the tab pages that I want, matching the default out of the box MBS shipper utility. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to basically take all of these contents here, and I'm just going to copy those. And then over here in the actual MBS folder, I'll just go ahead and paste them. And those files will then just go in there. Notice I did not get a replace message because I'm having all of my files that you're copying into the MBS installation directory all have that Tekla prefix on them. Now, if you wanted to customize the template editor report, that is what I was running up here with these Xshipper by name or Xshipper.out, or the reverse, which just reverses the punch codes and the cold form whole X locations. If you want to customize those and put those in your firm folder and tweak them and edit them to match your basically Xshipper.frm from MBS, you're more than welcome to. I actually have a separate video that talks about how to do that. And I just wanted you to see that you can get access to the Tekla templates for these 3 reports from within this folder. So that's exactly what we're seeing here with these 3 files. If you just copied one of the appropriate files into your firm folder, then you can go ahead and edit that with the template editor following the other video I have that shows how to customize this and match your Xshipper.frm file. Now, the other files that are in this folder are basically some text files and a batch file that shows you how to tweak the default MBS shipper program listing in MBS. So that way it's going to route and look for these Tekla shipper files that we just copied into the MBS folder structure. Okay, so let's bounce over into MBS and we'll go underneath the utilities menu and we'll go to the program listing. And this is exactly what I'm talking about. There's this default Excel shipper utility that has been added here. If we right click on that and say copy, it will create a new one and we'll call this Tekla Excel shipper, and it's going to actually copy the contents from the default Excel shipper. Now here's the things that you need to change, and that's why I was showing that text file before, is you just need to change the file names here to have a Tekla prefix on them. So I'm going to put the Tekla here, for instance, and then right after this I for inputs, instead of Xshipper, I'm going to say Tekla shipper here, and it will also say that the out file, so it doesn't overwrite your actual default MBS ship.out file, we'll leave that, that O there, and we'll say Tekla Xshipper.out. That'll get actually copied into the MBS job folder, but it's actually going to be ignored. But I'm only doing that so it doesn't replace your existing one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually change the shipper XLS name to the Tekla shipper, and then here this is actually what it actually gets copied to when it gets copied into your MBS job folder. I think it puts a 0 dash at the beginning of it so it appears at the top of your MBS job folder, but you can kind of change that to whatever you want to there. But now I just wanted to make sure at least this Tekla shipper XLS file name is being used, so that way again it doesn't overwrite your default shipper that you're running from within MBS itself. And so here we'll have the default file.out. You're not going to actually rename this because up here when this file is getting created and copied, I'm actually not renaming that because I believe the Excel shipper utility is looking for that exact file name. And so everything is set there. And then the last thing to change is this Xshipper.xls here. And I think we're all set. So I'm going to go ahead and press OK. You can pause this and study this and look at the text file to make sure that you have everything matching correctly, but I'm going to go ahead and say OK there. And then I'm going to go ahead and press the run button here, or I can double click on that line item. So let's press run and see if we get it to work. Here it fires up that shipper utility. Now here's what it's doing is it's trying to go into your default MBS job folder, but you're not going to go find your normal shipper.out file that we just ran. What you're actually going to do is you're going to browse to that Tekla structures model where you just ran that report. So I'm going to go inside of that model folder. So now I'm in the Tekla structures model folder. I'm going to go in the reports subfolder, and there's that Xshipper.out report that I just ran from within Tekla. When I press open, now it's using my default Excel shipper utility and the format that you're seeing here. So now, is it perfect to match exactly what you've customized? No, but at least you've got a great starting point here where you can copy paste a lot of the cells and the values of the data that has been created in Tekla structures, so that way you can merge that into your default MBS shipper that you've created out of MBS. Well, why would I do that? Well, here's a good example of like sometimes you're going to have maybe sheeting and trim. That's going to be a secondary thing that you do later in Tekla. And so you need to take the shipper that you've dumped out of MBS and you need to merge that with the structural or the primary framing shipper contents that you're getting out of Tekla. So here I'm just trying to give you a fast track way of getting some sort of shipper content from Tekla, even if it's not perfectly on the right tab page or in the right number of columns and things like that. At least you have something in Excel that you can quickly and rapidly copy paste or quickly absorb into your existing MBS shipper until we can customize your output reports to match your customized MBS shipper and customize that in Tekla. But just to get started, this is that rapid way of doing this in Tekla. All right, so once I've got that all done, I usually go ahead up here and go to save this into that MBS job, and I usually save it as an XLSX and then just give it the job name here, so that way it gets rid of the basically the macros that were inside of there. So 25001, and then I'll just say shipper, and then save that. And then there we go. And I'll just say save and erase the macro features. So now I have a standalone version of my shipper that I can just print out and then open at any time without it trying to rerun the macros there. Okay, so back here on the utility screen or the program listing screen within MBS, now that I've added that and I've run it, I'm going to go ahead and press exit, and I'm going to save the changes so it remembers that program that I created there for the Tekla Excel shipper. So another way for MBS administrators to deploy this basically new program utility for MBS is to actually modify this MBS program.def file in your MBS doc2 folder. So you can open that up with Notepad here, and I've actually got a copy of that file with my customized version of those lines that I just did directly in MBS. I actually have that here, and you can open that up with Notepad and copy paste that. So let me show you what I mean. If I say open with Notepad here, and then you'll see that you can actually, let's turn the word wrap off. You can just take all these lines here and copy and paste them, and then you can paste them into your MBS doc2 MBS or pgm.def file. So here you can see that I actually opened up my file after I manually made the macro directly in the program listing itself, and this is exactly where it put it. It just pasted it here at the bottom of that, and so that's another methodology of you deploying this out to users rather than having to manually add that directly in MBS itself. Now, one thing that default Excel shipper from Tekla here does not contain is the non-standard hole locations on your cold form. So if you have extra hole locations, for instance, on your jams or your eave struts or even your purlins and your girts, those are not being brought out into the shipper like you would see oftentimes from MBS. So what we have is we have supplemental reports that will give you that data temporarily from Tekla until we can get you a customized shipper export from Tekla. So first one here is this cold form export. So this one here, and these are actually the same report, they just have a slightly different way of outputting the data. The reverse, for instance, will reverse the punch codes and the leading and trailing ends of how the X locations are output from Tekla. Now, I'm just going to use the default one here, and I'm going to say create from all. Now, the idea behind this report is that this version of the report is a text file, and it was meant to actually be parsed by either an ERP software, or if you have a cold form control software and machine control software that communicates with your ERP. A good example is like Beck Automation and their Connect software. They can actually, you can have them parse this file out and get that data rather than trying to read it directly from a version of your Excel shipper. So this is another route of getting that data out of Tekla and getting that information over into your ERP or into your cold form machine control software. Now, in this particular example, I intentionally don't have DT punch set, so there's no punch codes. So that way you could just exactly see the non-standard hole locations, which in this case, every hole is a non-standard because there's no punch codes. But I wanted you to see that that data is there, and that information can then be brought into other software applications. Now, the one limitation of this is it does not have the hole diameter data, and it doesn't have like the Y location offset data. So this is assuming a pretty standardized, like, your standard punch patterns, say 4-inch spread, like our gauge on your Z's, your 8-inch Z's and your 8-inch C's and things like that. And maybe say like a 9/16 diameter hole or a standard slot that you use or whatever you use there. So again, there's some assumptions that are being made based on the shape type, and I'm just giving you the whole X locations. But again, this is the same data that you would oftentimes see on the default shipper coming out of MBS. We just don't have that in our Excel shipper template out of the box. So that is for actually being able to parse the data. But if you want more of a human readable and printable version of that, we have the PDF version of that report. And so I'll just select this cold form punch report PDF. And if I say create from all on that, it'll go through and it will actually give me separated pages by profile and by color and gauge. So that way you don't accidentally mix things that are dissimilar. And then you can easily segregate those or separate those for putting them into different runs on your machines out in the shop. But here, this gives you the exact same data. It's just that it's more in a printable form. So you can print this out on 11 by 17, and then you can walk this out to the shop, or if you're going to do data entry versus trying to read that other report to get it into your ERP, then you can easily do so and get the data that you're used to seeing on your shipper. But here you're just getting it in a separate cold form report. Now, when you run those reports in Tekla, they get put into the reports subfolder inside of the model folder. So I'll go to the Tekla menu here and I'll go to open model folder. And then in File Explorer, I'll go to the reports subfolder. And here you can see there are the cold form reports that I just ran. And then there's the Xshipper.out that I ran earlier. And then here's the new PDF report. And the XSR file extension just means Xsteel report. It's an old file extension in Tekla Structures. And if you actually just double click on it and open it up with Notepad, it will open up. Or you can rename it to a TXT file here for the file extension and just double click on that and it opens up in Notepad. Again, my name is Chris Keyack with Keyack Technology Solutions. I'm an expert Tekla Structures trainer and consultant that specializes in the metal buildings industry. And if you need help in getting things set up, please feel free to reach out to me and we're glad to help.